Hello and welcome to Fix It Friday, where normally what would happen is that throughout the week I have delisted everything in my eBay store that has had 0 reviews in the last 30 days, and we go through it together to see if there's something I can do to fix it in order to get the item sold, either by actually just giving up the ghost and redonating it because it was overall a bad buy, or taking new photographs, changing the listing, changing the price, or promoting it. But this Fix It Friday is going to be a little bit different because I have something that has come up a couple times now and it still has had 0 views. And it's because of the fact that it is a Lee trucker jacket. This is a size small. Now, I originally had purchased this for myself. So I had thrifted it and I had purchased it for myself because I've been looking for a jean jacket. And then when it got around to being fall time, to where I would have worn this jean jacket because I picked this up early in the spring, I actually had gone to visit my friend Matt in San Diego, and in San Diego I found a Dear John jacket that I loved way more, and I like live in that thing. I'm one of those people that do one in, one out. So if I decide to keep a thrift find, then I need to substitute it with something else. And so I decided to give this up. And I wouldn't have normally have purchased this jacket because it is Lee, and Lee is a brand that's sold at Walmart. And then other big box stores, so it doesn't have really a resale value. That's the only reason I purchased this, was for myself. But I don't want to redonate it because it's still a good jean jacket. I just think it needs something more. So what I'm going to do is since the patchwork shirt sold so quickly, and because I know quilted and patchwork and made things are really popular right now, what I want to do is actually make a quilt block out of bad thrift buys. So I actually have like a whole bag that's just full of shirts that are quality cotton material that either have a big stain on it I couldn't get out, or a hole in it that's too large to repair. So it was a bad buy, but if I redonated it, it's just going to end up in a landfill. So I've kept this big bag of like quality fabric, what I feel is quality fabric, so I could craft with it or quilt with it or do something with it, so that way it would eventually find a new home in another form. So that's what I'm going to do today, is I'm going to make a quilt block out of fabric that I have in my bag of sad treasures and do something that'll hopefully get this into a new home, or at least like out of my house. I would like to state that I do not recommend doing this at all if you're wanting to like make money. Okay, I would like to preface this saying that I'm doing this because this is something that I want to do. This is not a good business decision. A good business decision would be just to write this off and redonate it and say someone else is going to find it. No big deal. By investing the time and the energy to make this quilt block, even though it's out of already written off items, it's a big time investment. So, you know, what is your time worth? To me, I like learning new things, and I'm learning how to quilt because my grandma taught it to me when I was really young, and she only taught like very simple, basic, like big blocks, like, what do they call them? Quilting squares? What are the squares called? I can't remember. It's something like, there's a specific name for, they call it in quilting, and you can just like buy a bulk big bag of them at Joann's for a stupid amount of money. But that's how she taught me to quilt, and I'm trying to learn like more intricate patterns, so it's giving me a learning opportunity. It is something that I find very cathartic and enjoyable, but as far as the time investment and the overall financial investment in this, even when I sell this, if I add the quilt block to it, it's not going to be really it's not, for most people, it's not going to be worth the time investment, because by adding the quilt block here, it's probably going to be like a 3-hour time investment for me to figure out and piece this pattern together, in addition to sewing it and quilting it onto the jacket. So, you know, this is going to go from a $15 item to I'm going to put it up for like $50, okay, for that reason, and then hope it sells. And then it may not sell. It may not sell for that amount of money, so I might still lose money because I have invested that time into it. So I just wanted to preface that this is not a good financial decision, a good business financial decision that doesn't have any of the emotional attachment or the desired sustainability would be just to redonate it, because it's still a good quality item. Somebody else could still find it at the thrift store and buy it, but I don't want to do that. So just putting that out there, and let me show you the squares, because I've actually already cut out all the triangles for this. So when I say that this is not a time conducive way to make money, it is not a it's not a good way to make money, because this is a 12 by 12 block I made originally to go on this jacket, and it's a 1 foot block, and this is a size small jacket, so it does not fit. So I've now learned how to do this pattern, and what I'm going to do is actually cut this border. Well, I'm not going to cut the border. I'm actually going to make a whole new a whole new quilt, because like I said, this is a learning experience. I actually cut out all of these triangles for this block and realized that I cut them all the same way. So you're supposed to cut, this is a clear little piece, you're supposed to cut half of them out like this and the other half like this, and I just cut them all out like this, so I had to cut a whole nother set to have enough to make this. And so of course now I have extras because I had 2 sets of stuff. So I have plenty in order to make this next block that will actually fit. But this was quite the learning experience. I spent 8 hours to make this 1 foot block. So again, not a good use of your time, but if I can get this jacket sold and then also use up all of these scraps, because these are 2 vintage 50s handkerchiefs that were shredded on the edges. This was a shirt I picked up at the bins that had 2 giant holes on it. And these are t-shirts that I actually cut the sleeves off of and actually cut the graphic off of to do a patch for something else. So all of this is stuff that would have ended up in the landfill, but now it's going to be something beautiful, and hopefully something that will give a jacket a chance at a second life. So I've already started. I just have a lot to go. I have all my little squares here. They're all stitched together. I cannot stress how important it is that if you are quilting in any capacity or sewing in any capacity, how important it is to iron your seams. I know that's the part that most people just skip because it's time consuming, but when it comes to quilting, it makes a big difference in how your piece lays and how easy it is to stitch together. So I just suck it up and iron individual little squares, and then I'm going to iron it as I sew it together again. It's a lot of ironing and a lot of little stitches, but I will say this is going a lot faster than that original quilt block because I've learned stuff. And again, that's part of why I'm doing this, is because the initial time cost is a lot whenever you're learning a new skill, but I'm hoping to get faster at this to make it more something that I can do on a regular basis, because again, this is something that I enjoy. It also is making me super appreciate and wanting to rescue every single vintage quilt I find because the amount of love, time, and effort that went into making these quilts, especially if they're like hand stitched and not machine stitched, that's a lot of love and a lot of time and a lot of materials, and to have them just end up in a landfill like hurts my heart now, especially after just making one 12-inch square with a machine. It's an insane amount of work, and it's a beautiful folk craft that is very practical, and doing this just gives me a general appreciation for quilting and making. So again, not cost effective, but I'm enjoying it, and I'm gonna get back to it. So this is gonna be the piecing. This is what it's gonna look like, and this will actually fit the jacket. I am not going to film this part because I will mess this up. If I am not giving it 100% of my focus, this absolutely will not look like this when I'm done. So when I cut back, this little patch will be done, and I will be putting it on the jacket. I also just wanted to quickly show the difference between ironing your piece, like all the seams flat, versus not. one of these two is going to be much easier to put in the machine. Like, look at how fluffy this is. This is much easier. It's worth the ironing. And my little square is complete. So what I'm going to do to help attach this to the jacket, and see these edges are raw and kind of ugly, is I have some vintage seam binding. This is iron-on. So I'm going to iron this around the edges and then attach the edge and then do some quilting to attach it to the jacket. But this took an hour. So that is much less than the 8 hours this took. But then again, I was also interfacing everything. So all of these pieces are interfaced to add stability and also to make them roughly the same width. Because most of this is jersey, which is too stretchy to quilt with, or a vintage single ply cotton. So it is too threadbare for durability. So I had to interface everything and then cut it out, and then I messed up. So 8 hours, 1 hour. Much faster when you figure out what you're doing. Now, I've never used seam binding before, so this might be a longer process than I was expecting. Another tip is that anytime I go to an estate sale and the lady of the house looked like she was crafty at all, I always beeline to whatever sewing supply she has. And it's a great way to pick up really awesome vintage fabric, which you can resell as is and or keep. I end up hoarding it instead of selling it because it's me. And then also you can find notions like seam binding and buttons. Buttons are amazing to use in your own crafting and or sell yourself if you want to, if you get it for cheap enough. However, I do not recommend buying and selling vintage thread because chances are it's deteriorated too much to actually be useful in sewing and will break. But stuff like this, awesome. Like I probably paid like 25 cents for this. And by 25 cents, I mean like for a handful of them. Versus if I were to buy the same thing at Joann's, this would be like $4 or $5. So awesome. Okay, so I have the seam binding attached. Yay. And I've decided to do this at this angle instead of doing it flat. And because this jacket is not straight denim, it is an elastin content, I'm going to have to attach this via a zigzag stitch so that way the jacket can still stretch and it won't damage the patch, because this is not stretchy, this is stretchy. So if I use a zigzag stitch, it'll allow more room and hopefully keep everything together. So let's hope this turns out. You ready? Dun, 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 dun. Probably lifting my arm's not a good idea because it's still a little tight around my shoulders, but I love it. I think it looks so cute. It definitely is much better than just like the base jacket. Not that there's anything wrong with this jacket. Obviously, it's a perfectly serviceable jean jacket. But now I can add keywords like cottagecore and handmade and patchwork and quilted, and hopefully this cool piece will now go to a new home. Again, it's not cost effective. It took me about 2.5 hours to do this. Again, I'm having to like stop and film, so there's that part, but it's also because a lot of the pieces were already cut out because I had tried to do this yesterday and messed up, that, you know, it's not really worth your time unless this is something that you really enjoy, or you're trying to learn how to do quilting, and or you really like upcycling, and or you're just faster at everything than I am, because your girl's slow sometimes. I get distracted. But I really love this. I hopefully have made it so this will go to a new home. I also got to upcycle a bunch of stuff that would have ended up in a landfill into something beautiful, or at least I think it's beautiful. And I got a video out of it. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this little solo Fix It Friday. And I will see you guys in the next video. Until then, bye! Bye! Hero, hero. Hero, hero. I wanna be a hero, hero.